to get a qualified LinkedIn lead. So that's a number that at least I was told that if that matters to you, any of you, and how much your services are. Like if it's $100 to get a client, that could make a lot of sense. Facebook, Meta, oh man, I think it's varying per product, but it still comes down to dollars, I think, to get at least engagement, and you can drive that cost per click down. But it's not my true expertise. And my goal is, it's a silly way to run a video production company, but if we produce 300 videos a year, we should be posting way more and getting way more data. And I accept that responsibility to do that more so that we can actually help our clients more. So it's like pre-production, filming, editing are our wheelhouses, and distribution is definitely in our sights, and we're testing it actively. So by all means, feel free to continue and follow up with us, because there's more learning lessons that I know David has in store.
Thank you. So I've noticed that more ads we see are kind of coming in that like social media frame. They look like Instagram reels or whatever. So in that frame, I was wondering, how do you start to form or like create your own personality? And with that, how do you even come up with a video strategy, like a video like social media strategy?
Great. I love that question. So developing your personal brand, social media strategy. I mean, I'll go back to my main point of testimonials. Like, get yourself on camera as much as possible. Like because we have the studio set up now, which will be my next chapter, I forced myself to be on camera more than I already ever have in the last 2 weeks. And I've learned a lot about how I can do better, make sure your appearance is great, get a haircut, which I'm getting on Sunday. So, I appreciate you living it. But you want to be you too. And you don't want to let the perfection be like the enemy of the post. I think that was almost like, imagine if I had posted every video I've ever created for the past 10 years, I feel like I would be a couple levels above where I am now. So that's my advice, is post. Like, you don't want to, I see this with clients where they want to create the perfect video, and then it's almost like momentum's lost, and then you don't end up posting it. And it just takes a lot of energy to circle back around that wagon and like get those deliverables. So it's like, prioritize getting them to a spot where you're comfortable with it and post. And you can always re-edit and you can repost later. But I think, and then maybe live streaming could be part of the personal brand as well, because that's going to allow you to talk with a community, or hosting an event like this is going to form a community a little bit more. Video podcasts, I could tease out that segment that we're growing a little bit more, because, and I just fix the form too simultaneously. So video podcasts are a great way to, in theory, fix the form, get you to invite anyone you want to be speaking with into your show. So that's why I love video podcasts. Like, the last segment of our program here will be kind of like centered around how can we, who should I interview is one of the things I want to ask you on my video podcast. So this is just shifting gears, and I hope that helps a little bit. And I'm happy to talk a little bit more about personal branding, because I am trying to prioritize this. I mean, this is our animation reel, just to tease back out to the animation stuff. Like, animation just can come in so many different ways. We're doing a product demo. I feel like app demos are really important with animation, just to like help storytell. But you can have a lot of fun with it. Like, these are all different types of campaigns. I mean, the moving background of Kendall Square is one of my favorites, just because I love that as a show background. But as you can see, there's a variety of use cases for it. That was a cybersecurity video. This is kind of like a Web3 client. This was for a fundraising campaign in terms of virtual fitness. We do animation as part of our logo. So just example of animation. And we've touched on animation a little bit, so we don't have to spend too much time here. But I do want to open up to the audience and be like, is there any animated video campaigns out there that any of you seen that are like, wow, that was really cool? I mean, like, instead of a campaign, like, I love the show One Piece. I think that's like the best animated show of all time. It might be the best show of all time, honestly. And just the power of animation. Like, I watch that, and emotionally, I am so engaged. I feel like every episode I'm emotionally stirred, and that's what you want through animation. But is there any animated campaigns out there that you think help grow causes or cause you to think? And we kind of touched on it a little bit, so no pressure. But I just want to, yeah.
It's not really animated, but I'm thinking about the Draw My Life, when you see the people, the person drawing, and then you see the story, and then they erase everything and start everything new. And I think in the animation way, it can be also translated. And I really like, yeah, I remember more for those kind of campaigns than the regular ones we see on the media.
That's a good point. And animation it almost takes you out of your own reality, which I think is very cool.
I remember for quite some years, Google's ads exclusively featured animated walkthroughs of their own content. The one that stuck with me the most was a campaign they called Dear Sophie, which was an ad campaign directed entirely to drive users to Gmail. That was a Google developer who had set up an email account for his recently born daughter, and he was sending emails directly to it, and it was entirely screenshots and animations within the product.
That's very cool. And the fact that you remember it is even more, that's a testament to animation. Karen?
Again, another question.
Yeah.
So I worked with I'm tied in with XR/VR.
Okay.
When worked with a VR startup. So I'm wondering if you are sliding into doing anything with XR/VR and that whole world.
Yeah, so we are experimenting. I mean, how many out there have used Apple Vision Pro? It's one of the coolest things I've ever experienced in terms of immersive content. The reason why I find it so immersive is everything we watch is filmed as if it's with one camera, one eye. The Apple Vision Pro, the camera setup is actually 2 cameras that are fisheye. So it's like you're emulating like the actual human 2-eye experience, which is just so immersive. So we have some footage which takes so much more time to actually process from Takeda's beautiful 500 Kendall building. So like real estate VR experiences is something of a package that we're experimenting with. The storyboarding behind that's much more complicated. Like, how do you guide someone through an experience to a degree? Do you put graphics in there and stuff like that? Definitely interested in experimenting, trying to figure out how you even price that, trying to figure out who wants it. But I think real estate is an avenue. I think maybe training videos as well could be an avenue that I'm intrigued by. But it's definitely an emerging field. But I know that even now, like the Apple Vision Pro is going through, it wasn't necessarily ready per se. So like they just wanted it out. But it's, if you've used the Quest, this is 5-10 times more expensive. So just imagine that it's that much better, which is cool. So just continuing to move forward, the kind of idea of animation. So big announcement, I guess. We should get into this. After kind of 8 years of officially being a CIC member, younger me was here in college, but we have now negotiated this relationship where we're gonna have a video studio on this floor. And I think this floor is arguably the most active innovation floor in the world, potentially. I mean, just the fact that we're all here on a Thursday, prioritizing, learning and, entrepreneurship is just, I think it's awesome. Every time I come in this community, every time I walk through the doors, I gain energy, and that's very hard to say when you're going to work every day, So I love it. So our video studio, like potentially do a tour back afterwards. But the point is that, if there's 800 companies in this ecosystem at the Cambridge Innovation Center and more just in Greater Boston, a video studio I think is a super important asset that they can rely on to grow and just come in and have, like, we have multiple sets. And these are just a few examples of ecosystems within CIC. So like, I really am going to take pride in leading this ecosystem because I've learned from Lauren Abdo, one of the best leaders of the branch food community. If any of you are food startups, just can't emphasize how awesome that branch food community is. See Ahead is an awesome community here. Athos, C10 Labs, Activate, there's a history of clusters of organizations within this building that have helped companies grow. And I hope that, when we look at this years down the road, that this video studio is an example of, gathering digital artists, video content creators and beyond to create stuff more efficiently, more effectively, and for more of an impact. Because I think that's the key, is if you have everything set up where we're getting our time back in terms of a great setup every time and making it the higher quality, allowing us to actually be more creative with it. So, this is an example of what the set can look like after, a week or two of experimenting. This is just like an animated ad to a degree for the studio that we'll be launching in terms of like, why should you have professional interviews? But the offerings of the video production studio, I would say, are interviews, because that's what I think are the best, most effective way to actually tell stories. You can, we have a teleprompter there, which I think is a very cool asset. So if you've spent all this time scripting, I've seen the best CEOs and leaders have a hard time delivering a scripted video. It's just really hard. So you want to have that. You want to have the ability to have multiple backdrops. So while there's the same color, the last shot of this will be me in a different location, so it can function as a green screen essentially. So you could be anywhere, but you just come here and you allow all your interviewees to be in different places, which I think is really valuable. So in the last set, there's a few other sets in there, but this bookshelf where we just got on wheels, so we can wheel this bookshelf in and out of the back of our set. And so this is an example of it, like green screen. I'm not there, I'm in the studio, but it's cool that we can offer that. And our goal is to have almost like a menu of prepackaged places throughout the CIC ecosystem and beyond, where you could be anywhere at any time, but you're coming into the studio to get good quality lighting, good quality audio. Along focal length, don't sleep on this, but like so many people I see film with like a wide lens, which kind of distorts the human face a little bit. It just isn't as flattering. Like I love shooting at the higher millimeter lens. Like, they say the human face looks best between 70, 110 millimeters, something along those lines. So the fact that our studio has enough space that we can be far enough away, have our long lens on, make you look really good, I think is really valuable. And just having control of the lighting. Like shooting against glass is really hard. Don't recommend it unless you have a bunch of lights. Use the light if you're gonna be filming by yourself. Use the light as your friend, because natural lighting is beautiful. But we have way too many lights in there, ready for any use case, and we're experimenting with the best way to use them, so that we have really control of our set. I think it's just super important. And overall, I'm just like super grateful for the CIC and believing in this. From Tim Rowe to Stacy to Alex Chung from Venture Cafe, there's just been a lot of belief in this, and all the CIC staff members that have listened to me talk about this endlessly for 8 years. I am just so grateful for them, because I think that this is going to be a cheat code to punch above our weight class. Like I think we're going to be able to tell stories really more effectively and just help people grow faster. Just the fact that we have 2 interviews scheduled impromptu for next week. It's just like they can walk in, walk out, easy. It's just like so flexible, and especially when a lot of your people you want to interview have difficult schedules. So like getting your main stakeholders to go back to back to back to back to like fit it into a half-day shoot to save money, like that's just hard. And that always doesn't work out. You don't always get the people you want, especially like setting up in a location. So this is just gonna hopefully amplify a lot more messages, which I'm really excited about. This is an example of Blue Swell. I won't play this full video. This was like our test shoot space, so it's not the exact space, but it's just like you don't have to have a perfect video, like a perfect amount of assets to tell a story. Like you can use existing photos, you can use existing B-roll, you can use stock library. Like you don't have to have this perfect thing to get a video to tell your story. You just want to get it out there. And you want to capture some B-roll at higher frames per second so you can slow it down so it looks silky smooth and cool. But this was just a case study that we used to kind of show the purpose of the studio, where like they have a cluster. So if any of you have like clusters of organizations within your companies or whatever, I just recommend like, hey, this is a good use case for that. And we're almost trying to engineer packages that could be cost effective, where it's like, oh, you have a lot of members, maybe we do a discounted rate for all your members if you're bringing them all through. Like we're just trying to be mindful of packages, which is kind of fun. So this is our experience and kind of a review of what we have done, but what we're trying to do with the studio. Kind of just a summary. The last thing I'll say about video podcasts to a degree too is video podcasts are hard because it takes a lot of setup. It's organizing your guests, and what's the return? I think that's the question a lot of people, like, I want to produce a show. You know, me personally, I would love to do more of a show. And, but what's the ROI for my business on that? And I'm trying to engineer a package where you have almost like a PR campaign attached to your video podcast. So maybe it's a little bit more expensive, but at the same time, you're getting your audience and lookalike audiences and just putting money into making sure people engage your recap videos, your most important sound bites of your video podcast. And once they're subscribers, that's the fun part, because they're just going to keep learning from you and stuff like that. But like getting your video podcast in front of people is something that I want to take on the responsibility of getting into a better routine of through my own programming, and that hopefully translates to any programming out there that you guys want to do, because long form programming is important. And when you have channels such as Wistia, which allows you to organize them, like it's so easy for me. I have my video podcasts on my website. I put them into my channels. I just copy and paste the embed code, and I have my entire show in a very easy to play experiment with format, and I have a lot of control over that. Just another example of why channels via Wistia is so important. But video podcasts, I want to do more. And that kind of leads me into like our last few minutes here. I believe, you know, this is our team, but I'll leave this on for a sec. I want to ideate. So this show is really grounded in sparking civic imagination. And that's like going back to my story. Like I want to be at the intersection of civics, entrepreneurship, and sustainability. And I want my video podcast to feature guests that you would learn from. So, you know, examples, like I want to interview more of the governor's administration because I think that they are doing an admirable job in a lot of ways, and I want to help them storytell. Or Mayor Wu, you know, or City of Cambridge. Like those are organizations that I want to help storytell more. So I want to open it up to the audience for our last 5 minutes, and we can go rapid fire to a degree of like, what campaigns out there or organizations, campaigns you want to hear more from that you think are mission driven?
Wave of having more electric vehicle charging infrastructure. They're trying to put them up everywhere. The utility has opened the floodgates on incentives. The state has incentives. And what they're trying to get after, how business owners, real estate owners, hoteliers, hospitals need to jump in. There's a lot of an untold story there. You're hearing from it from companies who are coming at you in many different directions. But from a civic, entrepreneurial, state-focused standpoint, that's something that's been on my mind.
I appreciate that. I think that we need to reduce our fossil fuel emissions. Like, why aren't we using the sun? Why are we burning stuff? Why are we destabilizing our planet more? You know, I think it's almost like selfish isn't the right word, but at the same time, like we're, as a species, I think too short-term focused. Like we have to challenge ourselves to think more long-term about how generations, I mean, how beautiful is New England? You know, like this is, I think like one of the most beautiful places in the world. Like I can't imagine if 100 years from now, like people can't go outside because of more intense weather. Like that would be so selfish of our generation, of society as a whole, to not challenge ourselves to think more about it, to talk more about it. So I hear you and I appreciate that idea.
Just jumping on the sustainability train, the Blue Innovation Labs in Chelsea could be an interesting spot for you. And just keeping on the CIC Providence has more than 50 startups in the offshore wind area. And so just like kind of talking about the ocean state and ocean sustainability could be kind of a great opportunity to get more into the ocean space.
I love that. Thank you, Beck. Yes.
Hey, so one of my favorite documentary films is Ex Libris. It's about the New York City Public Library system.
Ooh.
And this is a movie that's like 3.5 hours long. I watched the whole thing. I enjoed it. But it just blew my mind that libraries are so much more than borrowing books, right? They have so many community outreach services, and I would love to see something from the public libraries to inform the public about what they do and let them tell their story. So
That's a lovely idea of a civic institution that almost deserves our circle back around. I feel like so many of us younger, spent more time in libraries. I did back in the day. I loved being in the library. It's really fun.
Mass Robotics down the Seaport has RoboBoston September 28th. It's an open air area. If the consumers come, and there are robots going everywhere. And I don't remember ever seeing anybody video that. And I think that would be so powerful.
I am grateful that we have the contract to video it on September 28th. So we'll be flying a little drone, getting some interviews. So I appreciate that, Mark. I am excited by that. Mass Robotics is awesome. And just like wrapping up some ideas on what I feel passionate about storytelling. I think that we should do more storytelling in the form of our education department. How do we better fund that? How do we better, I was so excited to hear that did anyone remember that our trains used to run 24/7? But, I think it was like the 60s or 70s or something. And that is being rediscussed. So like, how can we have public infrastructure that allows our city to be world-class, like we know it can be? I thought that was so cool. I have, just testing, fusion energy, like should we focus more on that? Because that's an incredible form that's being developed in Cambridge. Like childcare, like this episode, affordable housing, tripling down on affordable housing. I'm glad Cambridge is one of the best leaders in the country, most inspiring leaders. Burhan is doing a great job writing their housing bills in terms of building more affordable housing. If you haven't watched our last episode of New Views, it was about affordable housing. We had a great panel. I learned so much. It was awesome. It actually hinted the fact that we used to have a robust federal housing bill. So I'm excited to hear of this new federal housing bill for the first time since the 1980s coming through. But my last point is childcare. I think like if we want to build a better future, we have to lead the country in childcare programming. I think Massachusetts can do it. I've heard whispers about it, but I would honestly love to interview the administration or anyone else. If anyone has any connections in terms of childcare leaders, I would love to bring them on and interview them because I think that's super important and just it's the future. We have to invest in our future and we can do a better job of that. So yes, exactly. We got one more here and I want to make sure we're opening up to the next program as well.
Oh yeah, it's about not share housing, but shared community within the same building. So you have different apartments, and then everyone has a duty, like the weekly duty, for example, and everyone it's something different. And they are implementing this in Europe, in some cities, and I would love to see it in Boston too.
Oh, I love that. That brings me onto the mindset of cooperatives. Like one of our clients is a cooperative, and I just love that idea. So to bring it all together, I believe the QR code works. If it doesn't, it doesn't work. So come up to me afterwards. Let's do a LinkedIn connection. And in conclusion, I want to thank everyone for joining this session. I hope you learned something. Thank you very much. And thank you to Venture Cafe. Thank you to Wistia. Thank you to CIC. Thank you to all of our clients for believing in us. And thank you to all for hopefully moving the needle in terms of how we can all grow through video. So have a good rest of your evening. Thank you. That's my fault. You want to do LinkedIn?